This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area. Informed Sources is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
We count on Informed Sources to continue the discussion on important local issues.
It's where our top journalists discuss stories they've covered.
Stay informed with Informed Sources.
Hello, I'm Marcia Cavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, the jury has now had their say on a trial that has been the talk of the town in a case that involves sideswiping trucks, insurance fraud, and a murder. We'll be looking at the proceedings, plus big plans for finally reviving West End, as well as the latest on the Louisiana U.S. Senate race and broken pipes and fractured politics. We'll also take a look at Sinners, a movie filmed in Louisiana that made a big statement at the Academy Awards. Joining us are tonight's Informed Sources, Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources, Lara Nicholson, staff writer of the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, Will Sutton, columnist, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, and also WBOK radio host, and Mike Perlstein, freelance journalist and formerly an investigative reporter for WWL Louisiana Channel 4. Okay, Mike, over to you, because you've been sitting through this trial about the so-called slammers running into 18-wheelers. We got a guilty today over at federal court.
Yep, it was a clean sweep, almost, for the government. Guilty across the board, except for one count on a third defendant who was found not guilty as being part of the conspiracy. But the two attorneys, Vanessa Mata and Jason Giles, and their respective law firms, all found guilty of conspiracy, mail fraud, wire fraud, obstruction of justice. Those are very, very serious counts that likely gives them a range of prison time all the way up to 20 years, possibly more. There's a lot of money involved, as we've stated many times in the course of my coverage and my station's coverage going back to 2019. Hundreds of staged accidents, hundreds of millions of dollars collected from insurance companies and trucking companies in fraudulent lawsuits. As brazen as people who packed into cars weren't hurt getting surgeries to increase their payout. So there was just a lot of drama. And this, even after 60 defendants indicted, 51, I believe, was the count of those who pleaded guilty, this is the first trial. Everyone else previously, the 51 defendants, all pleaded. Many of them cooperated, were on the witness stand during the course of these 3 weeks. So really dramatic development after such a long investigation. Case had all these twists and turns, and most tragically, it includes the murder of one of the key witnesses, one of the slammers, who worked extensively with a couple different of these law firms, was murdered on the doorstep of the home he shared with his mother, and two remaining defendants are still awaiting trial in that murder set for August. So while this was the first trial, it's not the last, at least the last scheduled, with two more defendants. And a very serious charge that probably won't, but could carry up to the death penalty, murder of a federal witness.
Like you said, the trial went on for, this was the end of 3 weeks. When did the jury get the case to consider?
So that was, this morning after hearing all the closing arguments over the course of Thursday afternoon with jury instructions, also late in the early evening of Thursday. They started fresh, 8:45 with deliberations. By 2:30, everyone got word, the verdict is in.
Pretty quick deliberations then.
And let me tell you that it's just generally a rule of thumb that fast jury deliberations are usually not good for defendants. We're starting to reach the point in the number of hours, once it crossed the 5-hour mark, like, okay, maybe they're, hung up on a count or two. As time passes, usually defendants get more hopeful. And just as we're saying, wow, I wonder if this drags on throughout the course of the day or even in tomorrow, then we get the word verdicts in. As the defendants and their attorneys return to the courtroom to go back and hear their fate, very downcast. Defendants don't want, you know, the faster deliberations. And considering 10 counts, 3 weeks of testimony, this was pretty fast. I'm sure they did a conscientious and orderly job in that jury room to plow through all the, you know, different counts against different defendants. It would be considered a pretty quick verdict and almost a complete slam dunk for the government.
Right. How about the insurance companies that insured the trucks? Are they expected to do anything and to sue these people? Or?
You know, they, over the course of this, and it came out at trial, I mean, they were put in this difficult position of knowing and even raising the red flag and filing legal motions, counterclaims as they're called, raising the issue of fraud. Even in those cases that they flagged for fraud and actually became part of this criminal case, they still paid out settlements because that's what big corporate insurance companies do. Wow, this litigation is getting really expensive and could go on for years. Let's just cut our losses, cut a check, some six-figure checks going to these people who claimed injuries that were phantom, non-existent. And so that's over for them. They paid it out. The government, however, in forfeiture can certainly try to claw back money from Vanessa Mata and her law firm and the King firm, Jason Giles. And that's why those two law firms were also defendants in addition to the lawyers themselves.
And found guilty.
All found guilty across the board.
Describe what the courtroom was like when the verdicts came down.
Well, like I said, it was, considering the mountain of the evidence over the course of 3 weeks, relatively quick, early afternoon, let's say. It was a very downcast defense table because I think they were bracing for this isn't good for us, but they've come back. They weren't hung up on any counts. And everybody, obviously the judge reminded everyone, no emotional outbursts, and the courtroom was absolutely packed, every seat filled, people in the overflow courtroom. A lot of drama building up and a lot of different interests from, you know, the defense bar. You know, the U.S. Attorney's Office had been questioned over the course of why did it take so long. People and family of the defendants, a lot of emotion, a lot of things at stake. So it was one of those, obviously ordered by the judge, but you could hear a pin drop as those verdicts were read. There wasn't immediate emotion, but as soon as that jury filed out, Vanessa Mata embraced her daughter, sobbing in court. Jason Giles trying to remain stoic, but you could tell wincing a little bit. His family was also in court. So there's always, aside from, you know, the guilt and innocence, there's always, you know, other collateral damage. You know, families affected. Vanessa Mata has, you know, 2 children.
Yeah. And so now faces prison time.
And almost assuredly. So the opportunity, the one thing that was surprising to some people is that this trial even happened with 51 people pleading guilty up till now. And knowing you're going to have these people testify against you, cut the deal, cut your losses. They didn't. They rolled the dice. They went to trial. Now they're going to face prison time.
And okay. All right, Mike. Yes, very dramatic indeed. Thanks a lot. Something you've been covering for a long time, too. Thanks. Lara, let's go on over to you because some good news regarding West End Park. Lara, it looks like there's maybe some movement to bring it back to life.
Yeah, so this is an area, so if you're at West End Park, you go on the eastern side, there's a collection of restaurants. On the west side, there's like a fenced off kind of parking lot area that has been completely vacant since Hurricane Katrina. It used to be the site of a lot of restaurants and very well-known Fitzgerald's used to be over on the water. Since Katrina, that area has been vacant, and there have been efforts over the last decade to try to redevelop it in some way. But here and there, the efforts stalled, and it seems like now, kind of with Helena Moreno in charge and, you know, the different elected officials, it seems like the stars are finally sort of aligning to try to bring redevelopment to the area.
Well, what has been blocking it over, you know, the course of years? how do neighbors feel about it? How are the parishes working together, or how are they working together now?
Yeah, so what we're talking about is this one little square of land. What complicates it is that 1/3 of it, this sliver that's along Lake Pontchartrain, is owned by Jefferson Parish. There's a knocked over "Enter Jefferson Parish" sign inside the fence even. The other 2/3 are in Orleans Parish, and the state owns the property, specifically the reclaimed water bottom. So there's a lot of different jurisdictions at play here, and they all kind of have to agree and be on the same side. So over the last 10 years, there's been complications where maybe, I know at one point both parishes signed an agreement, but I think previous New Orleans administration was sort of in opposition to the terms of the agreement. So again, you've got to get a lot of players involved here. What's been happening is, I know in 2024, Stephanie Hilferty at the state level removed some of the obstacles on the state level to bring about this development. And then this year, you've got Helena Moreno in charge. You've got Joe Giarrusso, her second in command, was the council member who was kind of trying to do all of this when he was in charge of the district. And you've got someone who was in his office, Amy McCarran, being at the council level now. So again, there's a lot of cooperation here. It's also a great example of Helena Moreno has talked about wanting regional cooperation here. And so this seems like it could be one of the first really tangible examples of that. You do have some opposition there's a group of neighbors who say over the 20 years of development there have been, more birds and more natural life coming into the area. They would rather see it be developed into something like a bird sanctuary or pickleball courts, and they have been very vocal in that opposition. But it seems as though elected officials are interested in continuing with this redevelopment.
To show the geographic confusion, the park is on the west end of Orleans Parish, but it's on the east end of Jefferson Parish.
Yes.
But it's called West End. So sometimes people in Jefferson say, why do you call this West End? This is over on the east side. So.
Yeah, right. It's like, it's kind of a mess to try to figure out.
At its best, it could be a beautiful park. It had that, that beautiful centerpiece. I think it had a fountain at one time. It was a good place to relax, and the seafood restaurants. I mean, it was nice in potential.
It has a long history, that's for sure,
But
in New
what's
Orleans
up
culture.
with the bird sanctuary versus pickleball?
I think I think they're concerned about noise, traffic, things like that. I will also, this is important for me to mention, I will say a development that's happened since Katrina is now that you've got the 17th Street Canal Pump Station. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers does absolutely prohibit any kind of building on the actual water. So the restaurants or whatever might come next, it's not going to be on the water the way you think of Fitzgerald's and how it was back in the day. But it'll be something.
No
Okay,
restaurants on
that's good news.
stilts over Lake Pontchartrain.
No.
No, those were great fun to go to. Okay,
The
thanks.
pilings are still there,
Yeah,
though,
I know.
from way back. So
Back in the days when Catholics were not allowed to eat meat on Fridays, it was the most popular place in town because people go for seafood on Friday nights.
Yeah, I
long
can
lines.
remember, those of a certain age have really great memories as kids being out there. All right, thanks a
Indeed.
lot, Lara. All right, let's go on over to you, E, because we are still in the midst of a Senate race.
Yeah, well, the big news this week was, I guess, as big as you could get in this race is two of the candidates have agreed to a debate. There's been talk about a debate. Bill Cassidy has been asking for debate. He's not one that's agreed to. The two that have agreed are John Fleming, who's the current state treasurer, a former member of Congress, and Julia Letlow, who's a member of Congress. The thing is, it's a radio debate. So you're not sure what kind of audience a radio debate's going to get. No disrespect to radio, but I mean the people driving in cars want to hear a debate. However, it's a guy named Moon Griffon, who's not well known in New Orleans, but who is known through a lot of the rest of the state. He's out of Lafayette, but his broadcast is carried in Lake Charles and Alexandria, I think Shreveport, Monroe. It's just recently thought to be carried in New Orleans, but he hasn't really developed an identity. So does a radio debate have much impact? He is very, very outspoken, and he's known for being outspoken. He's a MAGA Republican, and if you're not if you're a conservative Republican, that's not good enough unless you're a MAGA Republican. Bill Cassidy doesn't like him, perhaps because Griffon refers to him as Psycho Cassidy. And for that reason, Cassidy, I don't know for that reason, but he hasn't agreed to the debate. But anyway, it's going to happen. It's scheduled for sometimes in April. And what publicity I guess it'll be to the extent that the other media broadcast it or at least show excerpts from it. As far as the race itself, you look at the articles about analyzing the polls, and it's really hard to tell anything. They're all pretty much running even. There were several polls that have been done. Unfortunately, a lot of the polls were paid for the candidates themselves, and so you question the credibility. One thing that seems to be consistent, though, is that when the polls show hypothetical runoffs between one of the candidates and the other, that if Cassidy is in the hypothetical runoff, he doesn't do too well at that point. And so that seems to be a weak spot in this campaign. People need to realize that what this election is, because this is something, if you've lived in Louisiana, you got to get used to again. It goes back in the days when you had party primaries. And so this election is really the Republican Party primary. And the winner of that, there'll probably be a runoff, will theoretically face a Republican. There is a Democrat. There is a Democrat primary too, but if you see their names, you will have not heard of any of them. So the Democrat is not going to, it's going to be whoever wins this primary that's going to be the next senator, and the election is May 18th. Of all the things to talk about in Congress, the words that are used the most are liberal and conservative. That the Cassidy people tried to tag the name liberal to
Liberal Letlow.
Liberal Letlow, even though she's the one that's endorsed by Donald Trump.
That's right.
And that's in the Cassidy playbook. He always calls his opponent, liberal. Okay. Everyone else is trying to, you say, hey, look, I'm endorsed by Trump. How liberal can I be?
And we've seen the TV attack ads just along those criticisms, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
and
still
supposedly it's
running.
reported that Cassidy's campaign, his media campaign, and his political action committee campaign is like $6 million so far. And so he's spending a lot of money, but for a lot of incumbent, the fact that he's not showing up that well in potential runoffs is a question. What hurt him politically was in Trump's first term when there was the vote to impeach him, and he voted in favor of impeaching Trump. Pretty much alone among the Republicans, and that really just angered him forever.
You mentioned this debate. Is this something that would even be taken seriously by a MAGA commentator, radio host? It's radio, not TV, and Cassidy's not participating?
So far, he's not participating, and so far it's only Moon Griffon who's going to be. But he says she's going to get somebody else to be on the debate too, unannounced. Okay.
But normally you expect debates, hosted by maybe the, let's call it mainstream media, one of the big TV stations, known for some neutrality. This is clearly not that.
I'm all in favor of media people doing it, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Okay, well, we got to wrap up this
Okay.
conversation right now. Thanks a lot,
All right.
you. And let's move on over now to Will. She wanted to talk about the movie Sinners, which really came away this award season with, a wheelbarrow full of awards, including 4 Academy Awards. And this is a film that was filmed primarily in Louisiana, all around Louisiana.
Absolutely.
But quite an interesting film, too, a film of multiple layers.
Multiple layers of storytelling, fine craftsmanship of all kinds. Nominated for 16 Oscars, breaking the previous record of 14 Oscar nominations, and that included Titanic, La La Land. But I think we have a clip.
We do. We have a clip, and let's take a look at this quick clip of Sinners.
We've been gone a long time. We back now. You twins? Nah, we cousins.
There are legends of people with the gift of making music so true. It can conjure spirits from the past and the future. This gift can bring fame and fortune.
Will somebody take me in your eyes?
But it also can pierce the veil between life and death.
And of course, those twins, and they are actually twins, played by the same actor who won the Academy Award for Best Actor.
Michael B. Jordan, and they were.
The name Michael Jordan lives on, huh?
Yeah, well, he early in his career, he made that distinction so that the name would be clearly separate and carry on. It's worked to his advantage to be Michael B. Jordan. So the Oscars, of course, are out in Hollywood. And we have strong connections to this movie because it was filmed here, but also because we had a number of cast and crew members who were a part of it. Ryan Coogler, the writer, producer, director of the movie, made a point of gathering with some of his cast and crew immediately after the show. That's Allison LaCour on the right, principal makeup artist on the movie from New Orleans, and then some other cast and crew members were there after the show. And we also had Michael B. Jordan, the Best Actor nominee, who won an Oscar with Allison and a key hairstylist after the show. So they were happy to show off their Oscars. They let some of the cast members hold it, and Michael B. Jordan even went out to an In-N-Out burger with his Oscar afterwards to celebrate with the people.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
But big connection, big connection for New Orleans and
some
Southern
other actors
Louisiana.
Too.
We've got. We also have a 14-year-old. Well, actually, she's 14 now. She was 13 when she filmed the movie. That's Aiden Enkelard. And she's next to Sam Logan, who is an insurance agent by principal job, but acting is his love and his passion. They both were here at home watching the Oscars, and both of them were very excited. And Allison was quite excited on Sunday. I was talking with her by phone on the way to the Oscars, and she could hardly talk to me because she was so caught up in the glory of the moment. But I really want to suggest that for folks who haven't seen the movie, and for folks who have seen the movie but maybe missed some points, that there are multiple layers to this movie. You could look at it and see a principal actor and say, he's not one of my favorites. You could look and hear or see vampire and say, that's
I'm not interested in a vampire film, which
not
is
for me.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the music. I mean, the movie was so much connection to New Orleans with the great music. I mean, in fact, legendary as far as filmmaking. That montage of the kind of history of African American contributions to music through the ages was simply stunning. And that clip made me want to watch the movie again, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, and also I want you to mention the other actor too, who's works with you over at WWL.
Yeah, Graylin Brian Banks is one of the hosts of the Front Porch on WBOK. His show follows our show, the Good Morning Show on WBOK, 12:30 a.m. And Graylin is very ingrained in a part of this black culture community. He's a part of the Men of Labor. Black Men of Labor. He's a part of hospitality. He's a hospitality expert and has served in a number of roles. A lot of people know him. And he's very much a part of the arts and entertainment community and just the deep culture that we have here. So very happy for Graylin, for Aiden, for Sam, for Allison, and for all of the other locals. But this has multiple layers. I really don't think you can do it justice by watching it one time. Because there are a number of layers, including oppression, white supremacy. The person you think is good is really evil, and it gives a lot to think about. One of the things that I'm impressed by is Graylin certainly made some money from this, but before he received that money, Graylin went and paid his own money to see it 8 times because every time he was seeing something different.
Else. It's one of those type of movies where you really can find things in there, and don't be afraid of the vampires. It kind of chased me away at first, but it's worth seeing.
For horror movie fans, it's also a horror movie on top of everything else.
Absolutely.
Because there are vampires in the film. Okay, thanks a lot, Will. All right, Mike, I'm going to start with you, and this has to be a quick conversation. Pipes, the water pipes in the city of New Orleans, the Sewage and Water Board has come out with a strategy or a plan. Where's that going to go?
Okay, plan, let's put that in quotation marks. The council was not that impressed, simply because these are, 1,600 miles of these pipes underground. We've had 3 water main breaks, all in that Carrollton area near the plant, which created a lot of inconvenience, if you want to call it that, for some people even more who had cars and even their property flooded. But boil water advisories through the entire East Bank, shuts down, or it affects restaurants and it causes other shutdowns. And the idea, I guess, it boiled up to the point of the council saying, Sewage and Water Board, how can we prevent this from happening? And there's no easy answer. These pipes are 10 to 15 feet underground in the middle of streets. And they said, okay, $3 million just to assess what we could possibly do, another $300 million.
Just to assess what could be done.
$3 million to assess, $300 million if they really wanted to do the first phase of, replacing these pipes. So that's all money that, as we know, the city does not have.
And really, it's going to take a decades-long effort, is essentially what they're saying, to really upgrade that
Big problem
infrastructure.
and expensive.
This is something we will be talking about a lot over the weeks to come. Thanks a lot, Mike. But we got to start wrapping things up. Other stories, E, over to you.
The story of Julia Letlow, of course, is one of tragedy and joy. Her husband died in December after being elected to Congress of COVID. And she went on to be elected to Congress and took his place and has had a successful career so far. In December of this year, or past year, she became engaged to a guy named Kevin Ainsworth. They got engaged in the White House, and they got married sometime this year. He is a former baseball player for LSU and is an attorney for Jones Walker. I don't know what's more prestigious, to be a senator, to be an attorney for Jones Walker, or to be an LSU baseball player. But they got something there.
Well, good luck to her. And you guys have to make it real quick now. Lara?
I covered a Kenner Council meeting this morning. They were debating whether to redirect the water bill fee for Lafreniere Park back over to Kenner Recreation, and there was a very heated debate that resulted in an indefinite deferral.
Okay. Will, real quick.
Congratulations to the Southern University women's basketball team. They beat Sanford, and now they move on in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Unfortunately, next up, South Carolina Gamecocks.
All right. Quickly, Mike.
Well, with the NBA season winding down, maybe the last chance to talk about the Pelicans, which, amazingly enough, it's been a disaster of a season, but they're one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. Finally, at full health, everyone back from injury. DeJounte Murray, that starting point guard, showing why he was worth all that, capital and trade. And a few more home games to go for people wanting to watch the hot version of the New Orleans Pelicans.
And that's the better version. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, guys, for being here. Thank you all for joining us. See you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
Informed Sources is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
We count on Informed Sources to continue the discussion on important local issues.
It's where our top journalists discuss stories they've covered.
Stay informed with Informed Sources.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.